Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and today we're going to be doing an overview on the latest letter from the Producer Live. Number 84. I was looking for the Roman numerals on screen, but fortunately, in our unofficial translation here, we have just says 84th. They skip typing all the L's and X's and all of that. So yeah, live letter today, patch 7.1 part 2 live letter. We got some in-game footage of a handful of things. We got some clarification about stuff that they didn't clarify in the part 1 live letter. And we got to see a handful of new rewards and our first peek at kind of I guess maybe what to expect a little bit reward structure wise for some of the newer content a little bit later. At least we can start inferring certain things, but we'll get to that when we do. Before we continue though, these are not the official translations. We won't have those for a little bit still. So the unofficial translations I'm looking at are over on the Final Fantasy XIV subreddit's main Discord. They have a translations and live letter section. Miyuna and Aluna Minori did the screenshots, they did the translations, and so that's what we're going to be looking at for this one. So of course, starts with the artwork itself right here. If you haven't seen it before, that's the Crossroads artwork. You can see the Oracle of Light and Dark at the top, Shadow Lord, Bakul, Prish, and the Cloud of Darkness hiding under the words letter from the Producer Live down there. Now it did start with the trailer. And very interesting because I'll have a separate trailer related video. We actually get to see what looks like an original version. I know it's a little off center. It's just because I'm not capturing the entirety of Discord here. We have Lower Juno in a non-funky form, but then as we all know, we have Juno in its funky form as well. So I don't know if that'll be a flashback to the past part of the raid itself. But we did also get a peek at some of the other stuff. We do see what looks to be either the Dragon's area itself or just Boyata, which is one of the most popular zones. Hopefully they'll have music from that as well. We did have Romave, which is the first expansion, Rise of Xylar. I predicted this would be a location that we would go to in the second raid. But it seems like, again, they are doing a best hits because we now know what all 4 of the bosses actually are. The first boss is Prish. The second boss is either Fafnir or Nidhogg, whichever one they go with. The third boss are the Archangels. It looks like Divine Might specifically is the third fight, and the last fight is, of course, the Shadow Lord. Some of you 11 fans might think that's out of order, and that's because it is. But I wouldn't worry about it too much. And you're right, this is Ruan, not Romave. Romave is over just past Boyata. It is the entry into Sky. Thank you. Then we also get a few other pictures. We have Halatali getting trusts, and we know the bosses are being updated there. We have, I think that's Prish doing an anime. I can't remember. Oh no, that's the Interphos. That's the boss doing headbutts, which just look like harrowing hell too. A few other screenshots. We have extra handsome Hildebrand. Doesn't look exactly like Hildebrand, but he's doing the walk off as if he is. He has a similar hairstyle. It's funny because some people are wondering if it's Hildebrand with a different face, wondering if he's mocking the graphics update, which I think would be a pretty funny take on that. We do also get another peek at Cloud of Darkness on chaotic difficulty, and we can see a handful of very interesting things here. Some teleports on players, taking them to different sections. We have the towers. We have way more tethers, it looks like, going by what's over here. I'll need to break this image down a lot more succinctly just to fully understand what's actually happening. We also see some shadows placed on the arena. They look to be I guess not exactly the same, but the shadows from E10. So I don't know, it's they look like they're taking up some spaces, which I did state when we were going over predictions for this, that there were enough extra spaces that you didn't need to worry about as long as you only had, let's say, 12 players on those, that you didn't really have to worry about all 12 players using up all of the different spaces. But if there's some shadows that maybe you can place down with AoEs that will be taking up those extra spaces, that changes things considerably. So I'm going to have to kind of do a zoom in and peek. There's several different Atomos. There's, I can't tell what these are. These aren't Atomos, but I don't think they're, I don't know. I can't really make out what they are. It's too dark for me. And then, of course, we got the tease here at the end with our new ultimate. And we actually have an explanation for this image, which will fortunately come a little bit later on. That is Mitron's mask over Reen here. And given the story, that actually seems that actually just makes a lot of sense. I can't wait to see what the actual full description is for from the minstrel himself. He usually has a little bit more explanation for that. Then we get into the actual translation. You know, they talk about how they basically just featured Final Fantasy XI music in the trailer, a lot of menu sounds and stuff from that as well. They mentioned how we'll be getting in-game footage. The sound team came out from their Shinjuku office, but they're broadcasting from Shibuya. So it's a fun little tidbit. And yeah, then they just reminded everyone of the patch. It is indeed Tuesday, November 12th. Basically, the two dates that I've been predicting, the patch date and the ultimate date. Exactly as I said, November 12th and November 26th. But later in the live stream, we do get a timeline of 7.1x in its entirety, including the release schedule for all of the stuff that we didn't have release schedules for before. We did also watch the English trailer earlier. I'll probably post the collective reaction of the two of them over to YouTube a little bit later in the morning. But let's move on. So they reconfirmed, by the way, that the story for Dawn Trail will be ending in Point 3. Endwalker was really one of the only expansions, Realm Reborn and Endwalker, where the story didn't end in Point 3. It really kind of progressed through the entire expansion, but Heavensward, Stormblood, Shadowbringers, and now Dawn Trail are all following the other suit of the story actually continuing until Point 3, and then Point 4 and Point 5 are really more towards teasing the next expansion. You might enjoy this ultimate a bit more if you do a refresher on the raid story, by the way. Oh, boy. Then we just got a quick preview of what's to come with a few extra comments. New main scenario, new allied society quest with the Pelu Pelu, the new custom deliveries, which will be in 7.15, the additional role quests, which will be in 7.16, the additional Wachimekimeki quest, that's the combined Wachimekimeki and combined role quest for the thing prior, also in 7.15, and Hildebrand in 7.15 as well. For the Pelu Pelu, they mentioned that they're going to be bright and straightforward, but that's about the only comment they had on any of the individual elements in this screenshot. They did also mention that since this new dungeon is part of the MSQ, will be not be as difficult as the extra dungeons, but they did do a new thing with the third boss. Our guy who programmed the duty support was questioning a little, are we really doing this? Sounds like he had a bit of a hard time. Then they talk about the extreme mode. They said that it's not that difficult. It's just an extreme, but there's a lot of execution-based stuff that you're going to have to be doing. So what do you know? You have to execute in an extreme trial. Never would have guessed. So just a largely vague statement altogether. However, they did confirm the new extreme mode will indeed give 2 totems. They said it's about a minute longer on average than the other extremes, but I know everyone was missing the 2 totems for Valgar Manda and Zoral Ja. So, yeah. Then we have some more of the battle content, the dungeon itself, the extreme, Jade Stoa, that's Byakko Unreal. We have Echoes of Vana'diel, Juno, the First Walk, Futures Rewritten Ultimate, and of course, Cloud of Darkness Chaotic. So, it's funny. So ignore what this says. This is actually an editor's note, not what Yoshi P said. However, the 24-man Savage is actually in 7.15, but it's a week after 7.15, which is an interesting time to release it. That obviously calls into question the validity of the rewards, because as much as it kind of would have been a pain to be in 7.1 proper, the rewards, if there's armor-based ones, or at least that's what we were saying before, they make more sense the earlier they are in the patch cycle. Now, I will say there are gear rewards. They did confirm that later in this live letter. And they also showed off some of the other stuff. There's mounts, minions, even a hairstyle that come from it. And some of it can even be sold on the market board. There's a whole bunch of other stuff to talk about in regards to that, though. So we'll wait till we get to that as we're passing through. They also will show off Hall of the Novice later and some PvP updates to do a little bit more detail. Then they had some more features. There's going to be New Game Plus support for Dawn Trail's base story, duty support for non-main scenario dungeons. They're starting with Halatali, which is why it was in the trailer, the new Hall of the Novice, PvP update, Doman Mahjong with the voices, as well as the ability to select your interior design with housing. Now, some people are asking, when is the ability to purchase larger interior housing? We don't have a date on that yet. They said that would not be 7.1 in the previous live letter, but we don't know exactly when it's going to be. Now, another interesting thing, apparently they are adding an extra side quest to the Pandemonium raid story. I don't know what else there is to do. Maybe something regarding the Heart of Sabik. We did just leave it with the researchers, which is kind of a dumb thing to do. So maybe there's like something bad will happen. It'll set something up in the future. Or maybe we'll just take it back because we decide maybe we don't just want to leave them with the Heart of Sabik after all this time. Might not be the wisest of ideas. But that's the only thing that really makes sense for any sort of additional quest in regards to Pandemonium. Then we got a quick preview of Echoes of Vana'diel, Juno, the first walk. Zoned in, we got to see Juno in all its glory. Obviously, not quite in all of its glory, as a lot of it is not exactly looking in the most tippy-top of shapes. Now, the background music is, as those Final Fantasy XI fans will call it, Dynamis music. It's the oh, and that's the music until you get to the first boss. However, I'm willing to bet that we actually have a pretty big variety of music here. Given we have Boyada and Fafnir, given that we have Ruan Gardens and the Archangels, and of course Shadow Lord himself will have the Awakening BGM, I won't be surprised. Boyada Tree's background music is one of the most popular BGMs in all of Final Fantasy XI. Ruan's background music isn't exactly like one of the more popular ones, but given that they're taking us there, it would make a lot of sense to actually have different background music. So you might end up with like, I don't know, 4 or 5 different Final Fantasy XI tracks. We also got the Final Fantasy XI login music as part of the trailer. I assume they'll use that as background music during some quests. They do actually do that in Final Fantasy XI as well. So we expect a pretty wide variety. There is voice acting in the 24-man. Some people had pointed out that Prish's Japanese Dissidia voice actress has returned. Not too surprising, because I'm pretty sure that the same voice actress did her Dissidia Duodecim and her Opera Omnia voice, and now this voice. But she definitely has a different voice than her North American Dissidia voice. She does still have that weird new appearance, but her personality seems very much intact. He just kind of walks through in one-shots. You see some goblin replicas, which are also in the trailer. Those are Dynamis-related mobs, which was an endgame activity in Final Fantasy XI. He says, I will not be fighting and will use the power of God instead. So he God modes, kills all of them. And for Prish, we just see a few basic mechanics. We get to see her raid wide. We get to see her do this like wind up and punch attack that does this cascading effect. And it looks like the cascading effect's range changes depending on the size, like I guess the colors of the AoEs. Like, so this one's actually, the donut encapsulates the first 2 spaces here, so she hits that center spot and then it hits the spot right after, like the wider circle right outside of it, but then the remaining bit all gets hit after that's done. So it's a little bit weirder than your average cascading AoE, but not that much different. Kind of reminds me of the second boss on the first Criterion, if you remember, the one that like counts how many circles it's going out, but this one looks to be, I guess, color coded in some capacity. She also had a triple hit tank buster, which murdered Yoshi P. And that was the end of what we saw for the Final Fantasy XI raid. We got to hear her making fun of Yoshi P a good bit, however. They did also make mention of some job changes. So Black Mages will notice pretty quickly that Yoshida had 2 stacks of ley lines here. Now, the cooldown is still 2 minutes, so we can assume the effect is approximately the same. This largely looks to be something to prevent drifting and to give you a bit more flexibility into using an extra ley lines at some point when there's little to no boss mobility, or if you need it for the mobility itself. So how it will actually be used, I'm not 100% sure. I haven't touched much Black Mage, but that's one thing to notice. Another thing somebody pointed out is that Despair was instant cast. Now, obviously, most of us would think there would be a Swift or a triple cast in play, but I had some Black Mages telling me that while they were in play, the stacks didn't get consumed. So it's possible that Despair is also instant cast now. However, we can also say with absolute certainty that Flare Star still falls off when you go into Ice, which has been a major complaint on top of the way the Thunder mechanic actually works. So if you were hoping for that particular bit to change, at least in the footage here, that doesn't seem to be the case. Then we had the 24-man Savage, but before they even really talked about that, they wanted to show off the Final Fantasy XI gear. This is the gear represented by the third boss of the raid, which is the Archangels. The Archangels, lore-wise, I guess I could do another Final Fantasy XI video. They represent kind of the worst traits that... I don't want to get too deep into it, but essentially all the races have one negative trait that's like a curse amongst them. And these are basically physical embodiments of those weaknesses. They say it in their entry, like, I am the apathy that blah, blah, blah. I am the rage that blah, blah, blah. And so that's what they are. And this is their armor sets. They've strategically given each of the armor sets to the individual races here that represent the Final Fantasy XI equivalents of Tartar, Elvon, Hume, Galka, and Mikote, as they would be in Final Fantasy XI, but they've just applied them here. Now, these are class-based. They're not race-based, the individual sets here, but they've just set them up that way. You can assume, like, for example, this is the caster set. This is the, well, she's a paladin, so probably the tank set. And then you have, this is the, with the headgear, that should be the striking set. Let me go back up. No, that's still the headgear. So what's interesting is one is a samurai and one is a ninja, technically. Oh, no, that makes sense. Yeah, so this is the striking gear, yeah, and then this is the scouting gear. The ninja here is the scouting gear, and this must be the maiming gear, I would assume. I mean, maybe it's the healing gear, because otherwise there's only 5 sets here. So, oh, no. The healing gear is probably going to be this, but with a different die channel, yeah. So, yeah, we pretty much have all the sets tucked away right here. I'm sorry, yeah, Mithra, not Mikote. See, I got to go back and forth between them, because there's so many Mikote, Mithra. Yeah, the Mithra for Final Fantasy XI, not the Mikote. And then here's just a quick example of how they die. These are some of the double die channels that you can see right here. So just a couple examples of how they look on, the Hroth gals and the Hroth guys, and just looking at it. Colors. I wish I knew what colors they were. Anyway, back to the Chaotic Alliance raid. They gave us some deeper information about the structure, the reward, and a quick peek of the fight itself. 6 tanks, 3 parties of 2 tanks, 2 healers, and 4 DPS, and they very specifically said you will need 6 tanks, even though it's 24 man. However, you can zone in with as little as 12 people, but it will not dynamically scale. It is still going to be balanced around 24 member alliances. All the mechanics will expect you to have 24 players. The 12 players is essentially, I want to go in and like maybe try this one thing or practice this 1 or 2 other things, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, that's an interesting way to do it, but 6 tanks, dude, it's crazy to think we're going back to having 6 tanks in World of Darkness, basically. It's only Cloud of Darkness, but still, it's a bit of a throwback. We see us zoning in, we see the original Cloud of Darkness pop out, and then we see the 2, E9S equivalents kind of floating alongside there. That needs 6 tanks right there. And then they start, he just hits the boss. Now, the boss does a couple of attacks. It does a point-blank AoE, which is like these 2 blades that it summons on its arms, and then does a point blank, and then it does this swipe attack, which is technically a donut, but the safe spot is by the other arm that is not raised up. You see one arm is on the ground, the other one is raised up. It's by the arm that's on the ground. It's not like directly under the boss. It's like offset. So that was a little bit weird, but not like it's a problem. And then her first major mechanic is cutting the arena into a big old pizza slice. And then she targets Yoshi P by holding up a crystal and tethering to him, and then this gives him a couple of things. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like there's a screenshot of the next bit, but he takes a pretty serious bleed from a raid wide. When the arena shifts, it's a bleed plus raid wide. He also is getting thunder resist down, which I believe is coming from the individual auto attacks. If not, it's coming from that tether. No, it's coming from the tether that's channeled to him. So it looks like while it's channeling, he gets 2 stacks of thunder resist down. I didn't see if it goes up to a 3rd. I'd have to go back and watch the footage again. And then a crystal that she's holding up that it looks like, I thought for a second he was actually DPSing the crystal, because it looks like the cursor is over the crystal. Oh yeah, actually, no, because that's the target. That's the crystal. No, I guess it's just the health bar is represented by the crystal, because her health bar does not, he never untargets her the entire time. So I was a little confused by where that was placed. And then it does like a crisscross AoE. After that, it summons a bunch of clones, and one of them goes off, then the other goes off. You have to find the safe crisscrosses somewhere in there. There's also like a 40-second debuff that got placed on the person who was tethered. Not sure what that does, especially with only one person, but that was all we got to see of the entire thing, which is fine. They do also mention the tiles falling down. He says that it's got a lot of phases. There's going to be some mechanics that split the groups, but it's not always going to be an 8-8-8 split. That's in line with what we predicted. We predicted a 6-6-12 split based on the way the arena was laid out, even if that does change a little bit based on those shadows that we saw placed down as well. It's going to require some pretty good leadership to do. He actually compares it to Eureka, so probably expecting discords to pop up for stuff like that. So, big thing, rewards. There are going to be several rewards. Item level 730 gear, mounts, minions, and hairstyles, and tokens to exchange so you can buy the various rewards. Now, we do get a peek of some of this stuff, but the new systems in place are also quite interesting. There's now a first-time duty bonus where the tokens to buy loot is actually, you get more of them when you have new players. And the more new players you have, the more tokens you actually receive. On top of that, they're doing a limited time bonus where occasionally a randomly occurring reward that persists for several hours will appear and will increase the drop rate of everything that comes from the boss, as well as give you even more tokens. So they said, I guess that those are not even consistent per data center. So like Ether could be in bonus, but Primal could not be in bonus. Or like maybe a specific server. I don't know exactly how it's going. Yeah, but I'd imagine that's what they're doing. You know, Ether is sometimes in bonus, and sometimes Dynamis will be in bonus. Or, you know, if you're going to the other, you know, regions, same idea. So you could you know, when it's working at least, data center travel to a data center that has bonus and participate, as long as somebody's willing to put it together. He does say that obviously the first time anyone clears, like on patch, there's 24 brand new players, so you're going to be getting a lot of tokens. You could be walking away with maybe 24 to 25 tokens off that first one, depending on how the system works, which is a lot. I'd assume that some of the rewards are 99 tokens, much like we have at the Extreme Trials, but that's it's interesting. And then I wonder how much this increases everything, the drop rates, the token rate, all that stuff. Then we see some of the rewards. We have a Diablos armor set, which is shocking because you would assume that at some point they would do Diablos Chaotic and use this there. However, that is a pretty sick looking set, and that's item level 730. For what role, for what job, who knows, but at least it's item level 730. Probably tank for that one. And then we have another set here. I don't recognize this. I don't know if this is an Aglaia themed set. It's really hard for me to tell personally. I'm not really good at that kind of stuff, but I just like see the crown and the gold and whatnot. I'm sure somebody will have a solid correction for me. Bart's, that would also be strange considering Bart's has nothing to do with the Cloud of Darkness or Diablos or anything like that. It's just Elvis. Yeah, I'll just call it the Elvis set. There you go. That's what most people are doing. Oh, and an important bit, there is no weekly lockout. It mentions that right here, so you can farm it as much as you want to get whatever armor and whatever mounts you want. Now, speaking of mounts, we got to see a pretty exciting development in mounts. So, first of the 2 mounts you can get is a PvP tile from E9S, and of course from Chaotic itself. Now, that's kind of lame on its own. It's funny, but it's not really that unique or interesting. However, the mount action actually activates the PvP tile, and at the end of the cast, breaks it. So you actually fall off and fall to the ground when you use the mount. And obviously, you have to use it close to the ground. You're not going to be using it in the air, and not like it would matter anyway, unless you're in combat. But that's really funny. Maybe you can use it in the air. I actually didn't. When he was actually flying around, I wasn't paying attention to see if the mount button was active. It is not. Okay. I had to scroll down to find it. But yeah, it does that. It acts as the PvP tile and drops you to the ground at the end of the cast. So I just think that's really funny. And the other mount actually makes you into the Cloud of Darkness. You actually fly around a cloud and you do her little, like, you know, hanging animation. This is very clearly a creative use of mounts similar to like the Magitech hand. Like this is just a really clever mount built around the skeleton of something like the Magitech hand mount that literally holds you and carries you. And it's just disguised really, really well. For that reason, both of them play the Cloud of Darkness boss music as well, in case you were wondering. So yeah, 2 pretty solid mounts. And they did, again, remind people that some rewards can be sold. They didn't say if the mounts could be sold, but they did say that a few of these rewards can be sold. I'd assume at least one of the mounts is on that list, if not both, as well as the hairstyle. The hairstyle and the minion for sure. Maybe the mounts also. We'll see, but they really want to basically be like, hey, you know, we're trying to create at least reasons enough to keep doing this after the gear isn't relevant. We think the gear will be pretty cool. People will like it. I was kind of hoping the gear would be 735 as a new BIS set for Ultimates, especially because it comes after the Ultimate has come out, and then the Ultimate will level sync down. So I was hoping it would be 735 instead of having to get dungeon gear in 7.3. But it doesn't really matter that much in the long run. But cool mounts, cool introduction to the fight. Really interested in seeing it. And reminder, this will release 1 week after 7.15, which they do give us a date for later in this live letter. He's just saying, you know, just better make sure you clear your ultimate fast enough to get this done. You want to do it in the party finder? Yes, please. Now for PvP updates, first a refresher, they are doing the action, execution, and hit detection. Basically, They're making it so that effects in PvP don't actually hit the player until the action would hit the player. So, you know, a warrior doing Primal Rend, for example, they can, right now, if they Primal Rend, they stun the target immediately before the animation even reaches the target. Now, after the update, you won't be stunned until the animation reaches the target. That's also true for stuff like the Machinist LB. So there's going to be some more counterplay available. They don't make mention of Dark Knight, which is another really contentious thing, but you can assume that they at least are aware. Smile. Black Mage is also going to change a bunch of this PvP. They mentioned that previously, so that's not new information. I mean, they're going to be adding some actions, removing some actions, doing some balance updates, changing limit break charge times, and a whole bunch of other stuff. They're also going to be adjusting damage dealt, damage taken, the limit gauge charge time, and even the functionality of the Machina in Frontline and Rival Wings, obviously for the Machina. He also wanted to add roll actions for Frontlines and Rival Wings specifically, but that's not going to be till 7.2. Curious how that's actually going to play into the larger scale encounters, since those will only be a part of the larger scale encounters. PvP Series 7 is going to begin. They did not show us the rewards for it, unfortunately, so we'll just have to wait and see. And they're going to be making some changes to 2 of the Crystalline Conflict arenas. In Cloud9, they're going to be adding some line of sight. You can see they add some walls here in the middle and some walls here back by the checkpoints. So just a lot more line of sight availability instead of having a lot of wide open areas, which I'm a fan of overall. And then in the Red Sands, they're going to be adding basically the LA Highway or LA Freeway into the rest of the map. As you can see, there are now sprint lanes that go between each enemy base, the opposing team's oasis, as well as a direct sprint line to their own checkpoint behind it, as well as the center point. So basically the ability to get around the map a great deal faster, which I think is going to be appreciated by a lot of people who are actually who maybe a little weary of playing on the Red Sands map. However, the largest change to PvP is how they are going to be doing ranked matches now in patch 7.1. Rankings will be determined per region instead of per data center. So there's no longer Ether first, Primal first, Crystal first, and Dynamis first. It's NA first, NA 10th, NA 100th, etc., etc. However, with that change comes a few other things. Number 1, ranked matches will only be held in 1 data center per region now. So for Season 12, it'll be Gaia, Primal, Chaos, and Materia for each of the different regions. OCE, obviously, Materia, duh. But for the other ones, if you want to do ranked PvP, you have to go to those data centers, which means they better make sure data center travel is working properly when Season 12 actually releases, or that's not going to go super well. Now, I will say this, Yoshida does outright state it would make more sense to just queue from the data center you're on, and everyone just queues into the same thing regardless of data center. He then reiterated they're working on that. They're working on that overall. They've mentioned cross data center, like same region party finder, same region duty finder. That's been something they've admitted they're working on. Basically saying when we get that done, that will probably be what happens to this as well. So, good news. I'm really glad to have addressed that's an immediate elephant in the room when hearing a system like this. So that is something that's coming. I also got to say, makes most sense for Primal to be PvP. It is the top PvP data center on NA. Now, on top of that, they're making it so only the best performing character on a service account can be listed in the rankings. So if, let's say you had 10 characters and you did, I guess we'll do something more realistic. Let's say you had 8 characters, since that's the limit, on the same server. I guess technically only with, whatever, just besides the point. Let's say you have 8 characters on the same data center, and they're all in the top 100. Only the one that has the highest placement will count. The other ones won't count at all. So that's actually a common problem. It's not uncommon for people who PvP a lot to get maybe 2 or 3 characters ranked in the top 100 in any given season. So it's going to eliminate that issue, unless, of course, they have alternate accounts that aren't linked to the service account. That changes things. But otherwise, it should eliminate people, running alts up through the rankings at the very least. Now, as for the rewards, the placements are going to work similarly, but they're going to have to increase the number of people who get each tier of reward. So obviously, there's still just going to be 1 first place. And now there's only going to be 1 first place for the whole region, as a reminder. So you will not, we're going from 4 first place down to 1. However, for second place, instead of it being 2nd through 30th, it's not going to be 2nd through 100th. So there's 70 additional people getting the second tier rewards. And the third tier rewards are now going to be 101st through 300th, so an extra 200 people. But again, it's technically minus because, you know, it used to be 30 per data center, so it would have been 120. It used to be 100 per data center, meaning 400. So now it's just, you know, up to 100th, 300th. Probably factor in people getting their alts up, and it at least gets somewhat close to being the same. The only difference is that OCE is only one data center anyway. It's the whole region is on OCE. So, or I'm sorry, Materia is the only data center on OCE. So they obviously are keeping the old rules where it's just the 1st, 2nd through 30th, and 31st through 100th. Yeah, and then he mentions here, this is the matchmaking thing. And after that, then he had to take a break. So they showed off a bunch of clips, 5 clips, 13 minutes total, see in 15 minutes. You know, they showed up a 16 trailer, Fantasian trailer, and some events from China FanFest, Gamescom, and PAX West. When they came back, they briefly talked about FanFest and finding venues. They're currently working on trying to find venues with a lot of availability, especially difficult in Japan. But they're working on it. They're working on the next FanFest and the venues already. Now, starting in the second half, they did show us the cutscene for the introduction to Futures Rewritten Ultimate. And we have our story explanation for it. Obviously, the minstrel is, you know, doing his usual thing here. But apparently, when Reen is initially transforming into Shiva, Mitron uses that opportunity while she's vulnerable to kind of infiltrate her psyche and basically takes control of Reen. So Mitron pulling more of the strings behind the scene, but then the bait and switch occurs, and when you thought Shiva was going to be phase 1, it actually becomes Dad Cred instead, Thanjeet, whatever you want to call him. So our first phase, as I originally predicted, is indeed going to be E11 in that of Thanjeet. And we don't really see too much of this fight. They didn't really want to spoil anything. You know, there's a death wall, and he also has, he can do either the fire mechanic first or the lightning mechanic first, but they work differently. This one looked to be 2 separate sets of 4 cones each, on top of whatever fire or lightning is going to do. Obviously, pairs and spreads come to mind, but they probably make it a little bit more complicated. Yoshi P said he doesn't think this is as hard as Top. He still thinks Top is harder than DSR personally. He says it's closer to DSR difficulty, which I did also predict, and that it's a very fast-paced fight, that it's probably going to be hard for the players, but feel really nice to watch because it's going to have the moving parts are going to constantly be in motion. But there's a lot of stuff that's typically found in Ultimates, whether that be puzzles or some sort of cryptic mechanic or, you know, just the usual stuff that we've come to know, trios and, you know, the debuff passing and a whole bunch of stuff. Also, Yoshi P said, don't cheat. Just please don't cheat. On top of that, they're also going to record more voice. They recorded more voice lines specifically for this fight. So I'm really looking forward to that. Futures Rewritten, if that makes you think of a big tree, well, I mean, Eden's Promise is a big tree, obviously. He, however, can say there won't be any lions, which is kind of a surprise. Don't even know why he'd say that, but I guess he's just letting you know there won't be any lions. Also, in Ultimates from now on, in order to gain any amount of passive limit break generation, meaning it just ticks up gradually no matter what's happening, you need 8 unique jobs. I guess they're trying to stop some of the like no healer cheese, which would usually stack like a couple of paladins and a handful of other stuff. Still kind of a weird change to make, in my opinion. I don't really see this as valuable, but maybe they don't want the perception of the difficulty or validity of the content seeming as rough. But I mean, if it's doable with no healers, it's doable with no healers. I mean, obviously they're taking away, and also like the 30 limit break, like like, I guess they're just trying to eliminate really weird fringe stuff like that that aren't really normal, or they just think Picto will still be so busted they don't want people to bring 2. Who knows? It's probably for the first several reasons, but whatever. And this is for not just for Fru, this is for all of the Ultimates, to be clear. So going back to UCOB, all of those, it will also apply to that. We got a quick preview of the Hall of the Novice, and I mean, it does exactly what they advertised it was going to do. It very slowly walks players through what each of the different things do, you know, spread, stack, towers, gazes, the whole kit and caboodle. So if you just don't know how mechanics work, then, you know, this will help teach them to you. And apparently he said the third one is actually fairly rough, and he actually wants to see veterans try to clear it on the first try. I mean, you know, a lot of us are going to be doing that, so looking forward to doing that. They also added a whole big like glossary with images, like an encyclopedia for different mechanics. You know, how to interrupt, like what types of attacks can be interrupted. What does a spread marker look like? What do the different spread markers look like? I skipped that. What does a tank buster look like? What do the different tank busters look like? So just making sure all the information is in the game, basically. So that is what it is. Then we got to see a couple of other mounts. We got to see the the barrel tender, which not only flexes, but if you pay close attention to Yoshida's character at the top, it's kind of hard to see, but you can see that Yoshida's character is also flexing as well, while the barrel tender is doing its flex. Just another fun little mount action. We do also get the manatee, the first boss of the first dungeon of Dawn Trail, as a mount, and it has a like splash emote, basically. And then we get to see the wings. So these are the wings from the Extreme Trial. These are from Fiend's Burden Extreme. These are what they look like when you're not actually flying. He's technically on the ground during this animation, you know, just character model at ground level. And then when you fly, it like sprouts the extra bits, you know, the tentacles, the little mechanical tentacles, the propeller swirly bits. It becomes a lot more technical. And it also has this really like digitizing effect around it, like pretty much all the time. Then we had some system updates, you know, the group pose update with the fishing animations, as well as the camera control to remain screen oriented rather than just based on roll angle. So this was just basically like, they talked about this in the last one. So before, even if the image was on its side, if you had to press up to move the image this way, even though this is technically up now, right now in the game, it would go this way instead of this way. They're making it so that if you press up, it takes the orientation into effect and then moves it up like that. So just a quick, you know, quality of life, ease of use style thing that they told us in the last live letter, but here it is again. They also said that they're still working on the whiteboard feature. They did bring it up. That's the raid planner, but no actual implementation here or update about when it will be implemented. They're also doing an update to outfit glamours where if you buy stores specific combinations of gear in the glamour dresser as a single slot. So basically now, if you own and have stored away all of the pieces of a set, as you can see right here, you can choose to store them all as one unit in the glamour dresser instead of 5 different units in this particular case. So that's going to save a lot of space depending on the number of sets that it actually works for. And you can see the list of sets. You can see the Mirage conversion on the right-hand side showing you like what sets are going to be doable. Should free up a lot of space in the glamour dresser itself. Your pre-dyes will get lost during this process. Unfortunate, but you know, I'm also not too surprised. You'll have to dye the pieces when applying them to the plates. So that's an important little bit right there. So make sure that you're well aware of that, as I pointed out. You're also going to be able to copy settings to another character more easily now. You can just copy a character's HUD layout, macros, config settings, and more to another character directly. The 2 things, well, there's technically 3 things we have that's close to this now. 1, you can upload and download your character settings. I don't remember if it's everything. At the very least, it's your hotbar. You can do that currently. You can also, if you're on PC, there's a folder on your computer that has all this information. You can drag all that information from one folder into another folder. I, in fact, keep that folder backed up specifically to do this in case I ever need to. Now it'll just be copy from one to the other and you're done. The third way to do it is, let's just say that this inclusion, it's inspired by a third party. As I have learned in the last several hours. Definitely inspired by recent external additions. It's a fucking app, all right? Anyway, they said that'll, you know, the game's running so long from RP perspectives, just having alts, it's an overdue feature. Duty lists can now display up to 10 quests at a time. Cool. So now it'll read 0 out of 10 for me most of the time, or 1 out of 10, since that's, you know, normally what it is. They're also adding the ability, so you know your mounts tilt in the air now? A, they're adding a feature to turn that off and on. And B, they're making it so your character does the same thing, which is really strange for me, but I guess I have to actually see it in action more to really have any sort of particular feeling about it. Starting with 7.1, character-related feedback for the graphical update those are going to start happening at 7.1. And because they're going to be making more changes, they're giving everyone the temporary ability to get an additional Fantasia. So basically, if you don't accept this Fantasia before 7.2, you won't be able to get it. It's not an anytime Fantasia. But if you're playing the game during 7.1x, you can go to a certain NPC, they don't say which one, and collect this bonus free Fantasia. He did remind everyone that while they didn't talk about it, there will be job adjustments. They just don't talk about them in live letters. So bear that in mind. So now we get into the release schedule for 7.1x. November 12th, 7.1. November 26th, 7.11. So Thanksgiving, Ultimate, cool. December 17th is 7.15. That is very early. Now, there have been times in the past where we've gotten a 0.15 patch after 4 weeks, sometimes after 6 weeks, sometimes after 8 weeks, sometimes even after like 10 weeks. It's been all over the place. But this one's like 5 weeks. And then Chaotix a week later on Christmas Eve. Now, even Yoshida says you don't have to do it the day it comes out. Like you don't have to do it, but come on. Of course we're gonna try to do it. Just because we don't have to doesn't mean we're not gonna be ignorant and do it anyway. Come on. So yeah, you get to spend Christmas with Thanksgiving, your family won't see you for Ultimate, and Christmas, your family won't see you for Chaotic. It's fine. Chaotic realistically shouldn't take very long to clear. They do say it's like, because of the difficulty being a little higher than they anticipated, on top of there being 24 people, they said it's going to be like a first or second tier Savage fight. So something like M1 or M2, which honestly is not even that far off. I feel like Valgar Manda's not that far off from being a Savage difficulty extreme trial. So that's kind of still on par-ish. It's a little easier, but still. I just think the release schedule, it's just so funny that now of all times, they decide to give us this like crazy fast release schedule for on top of all of the holidays. And then 7.16, which is just additional role quests, is January 21st. Why? Why is that? Yeah, I don't know. It is what it is. All right. Then we actually found out we are finally getting the joke weapon design contest. They showed us these weapons years ago as weapon design winners. They don't say where any of these are from. Most people would guess MGP, but who knows? And you have like the paladin weapon is a ladle and a plate. There's a lot of cooking related ones. You have the warrior axe with the bomb on it. You have this really pretty looking Dark Knight sword, which doesn't look like a joke weapon at all. The thing looks great. You have the shark blade, ooh-ha-ha, for Gunbreaker. You have the shark fists for Monk, who's stancing up. You have the fat cat polearm for Dragoon. You have the fork and knife ninja weapons. You have the umbrella samurai weapon. You have the nutkin bow for Bard. You have the rose gun for Machinist. You have the bomb chakrams, the bombcrums for Dancer. You have the stack of Screean teacups. The Scree Cups, the Scree Cup staff. There you go. You have the Scree Cup staff for Black Mage. You have the Phoenix Feather. Is that there's a carbuncle and a Phoenix Feather. Yeah, this is the summoner weapon. Cool. It's a book. Sorry to the weapon design contest winner. I'm just not thrilled about. I'm not excited about that. So it's funny. This is the Red Mage weapon, but because they still print stuff out on white paper, you can't see that Drippy is the focus, the foci that floats, and you attach your stuff. It's Drippy, but you literally you can see his eyes, but you can't really see it. Look at that. You couldn't have just printed it out. You couldn't have drawn it on an outline. You could have I don't know. Just come on now. You can't see it at all. You have a strawberry shortcake White Mage staff. So, again, really hungry. You have an excellent looking Celine and Eos scholar book. Probably one of the best books we've seen in a long time. Big look at the alpha plushie just staring into your soul while he's doing this right now. Then you have the Astro Globe. Merry Christmas. Anyway. Then you have the Scarecrow Scythe for Reaper. You have the, again, fork, knife, spoon. It's two different forks, but they look like the same fork, so they're probably the same fork. It's the dining table utensil set for Sage. Then you have the fork and knife again for Viper, but holding them differently. And then you have, is that a reef? And I can't even see the animal that's a part of that. I see the rainbow. I see almost like, is that like a white chocobo? What is that? It looks like a magical girl transformation for Pictomancer. But yeah, that's the Pictomancer weapon as well. So for Viper and Picto, these didn't have weapon design winners because this contest was back in like 2022. So they actually just made these themselves. These are actually dev creations, not design contest winners. So yeah, there's that. And then even Blue Mage, who is an actual clown. Even Yoshi P said they're a real clown now, which man, that's gonna hurt some Blue Mage feelings. You're a real clown now. And then we just got into the announcement section. War of the Visions and Final Fantasy XIV are doing another collaboration. It's a costume crossover. And this one's going to leave people a little sour. So Brave Exvius, I'll skip down, is getting their own section. The previous collaboration event they did with 14 is returning, but there's now going to be an additional Dawn Trail Vision cards. And that's going to be taking place December 1st through the 23rd. Then you have the 14 side, where we're actually getting outfits from two of the characters, from Mont and Mashir. These release around December, but they are on the Mog Station. We're not actually getting them unless you buy them off the Mog Station. So, womp, I guess. I mean, obviously, I don't buy stuff off the Mog Station, really, but I know people are going to be upset about that one. And I don't blame them, because I think it's a reasonable response. And maybe they were like, you know what, in Brave Exvius, they'll probably spend like hundreds of dollars if they haven't been saving up their resources in order to get these vision cards. So we'll sell the other half of it, too. It is what it is. Art book, the Dawn Trail art book with the Aaronville minion that releases in NA April 29th, in Japan March 27th. Well, NA and EU it's April 29th, but in Japan it'll release March 27th. We have the official soundtrack, which I believe is available now. In fact, it is available now, and that comes with the Zero minion. We have the Primals Live in Japan, Darkest Before Dawn live Blu-ray set, which comes with a special box, which includes a 10-year anniversary shirt. That releases in the end of February in Japan and in March for NA and EU. I forgot about this already, even though this was technically really recent. A camping set with logos, chairs, carts, blanket, tent. I want to buy that tent and just sleep in it on stream. All right. That's something. And we thought Final Fantasy 15 would be the end of the camping related stuff, huh? Well, there's that. And then Filibuster Paris is doing Grand Company bracelets. These are like 30,000 yen, which is like 180, 200 bucks, something like that. USD. I don't know what the euro translation is or the pound or any of that. But yeah, they're just for the different Grand Companies. One for the Maelstrom, Twin Adder, and one for the Immortal Flames. HGP shows it off on his wrist right here. 245 USD. Okay. Fun. It's so funny. When I'm looking at this image, I'm too busy staring at his watch. I'm like, oh, it's 11:02. And then also, they had one other. Okay. Listen. I don't think many of you are prepared. If you were surprised by tents, if you were surprised by bracelets, which shouldn't surprise you at this point, then I now present you with an EU exclusive one, the Schwarzkopf hair dye collaboration. Well, I'm colorblind, so I mean, this really doesn't do anything for me. But somebody brought this up. Why didn't they name it after Final Fantasy XIV dies? There's dark red, dusty rose, and vivid green. Why didn't they name them after Final Fantasy XIV dye colors? Come on. Where's Dalamud red? Not like I could see it properly, but you know. Yeah, somebody get that for Xeno, for his beard. That'll be fun. And then Echoes. So, funny thing about this. So, Saudi Arabia is hosting a big symphony for Final Fantasy XIV, November 26th and 29th. I was invited to this. I was offered to be flown out to this, and I had completely forgot about it. However, I knew there was no way I could go schedule-wise. I'm also not willing to fly like 16 to 20 hours for a symphony. And I honestly, I don't know if there's like flight advisories and stuff for Saudi Arabia right now. So, yeah, I'm not going. I mean, I hope those in attendance enjoy, but there's no way I was willing to go. Like, I won't even go to LA for a symphony. You think I'm going to go to like halfway across the world for one? No, I would be dead the whole time. Like, I would just be so tired. I was tired in Japan. I was there for 4 days, and that was like a 14 to 16 hour flight. So, yeah, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. Only a few more cheap tickets are left. Very few. Yeah. So, hopefully those in attendance have a good time. But I would definitely not be able to go out there. It's a lot easier now to go to Saudi Arabia with a new visa. Is it? That's what Yoshi P said. Anyway, Final Fantasy 16, also a reminder, 16 is on Steam, Epic, PS5, and Fantasian's coming out December 5th, Switch, PS5, PS4, Xbox Series XS, and Steam. Yeah, so there's that. There's also a patch note reading for 7.1 on November 12th. Maintenance will not be 24 hours. And then Yoshida just said they're offering a large variety of battle content in 7.1X. They've been getting a lot of feedback for 7.0, and they're going to keep working on it. So, good luck. Was there anything that's added by the... Nope, looks like the translations are mostly okay. Thanks for following the translation. Sorry for the typos, barely even noticed. So... yeah, that is the live letter number 84. Some pretty interesting little tidbits in there. As he did say, it is a lot of battle content, which I did release a video recently talking about how they should move more casual long form content earlier into the expansion in favor of just releasing things that have wider appeal than, like, you know, the 24-man extreme, ultimate. Like, we want those things, obviously. We don't want to wait forever for those things either. But like, the whole video covers like my idea for like what a better expansion release schedule would look like. And bear in mind, the fact that Chaotic will be out December 24th and patch, like the next patch, likely won't be until March 25th. That's rough. We'll see what actually ends up happening. We might see more returns of, like, obviously the Fall Guys return thing is whatever right now. I think that's right now. Yeah, that's right now. And there's other things that they'll do, but like that's going to be rough for the average player, even with the extreme, with the, like, for people like me, it won't be that rough, but for the average player, yeah, I think it's going to be rough. But anyway, that's going to be a wrap for my overview for live letter number 84. I'll also try to get the trailer videos out as soon as possible. We're going to have a State of the Realm discussing this later today. And of course, we will have patch notes next week. We'll have the preliminary patch notes next week. We'll have the full patch notes the day before well, I guess, you know, the morning of the patch. And then we'll, you know, have Unreal. We'll have Extreme. I'll have all my usual stuff out. Hall of the Novice, I'll do that. It should be a good time. November is going to be crammed full of content. So, as per usual, you can find me on Twitch, YouTube, on socials, Twitter, Blue Sky, and I technically have Instagram and Threads and all that, but I barely use those ones as well. And so stay up to date with everything I got going on. And now I'm going to go back to paying attention to my stream and see if Ivy will actually eat something. So thanks everyone for watching over on the YouTube side. Twitch, I'll get back to actually paying attention to you. And until next time,